The morning sun baked Magnolia Creek, casting long shadows from the oak tree in my driveway. My father's restored Jeep CJ7 sat there, its deep green paint gleaming like a challenge. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, when the black patrol truck rolled by, amber lights pulsing like it owned the street. The driver, a wiry guy in a cheap polo, stepped out and slapped an orange violation notice on my front door. "Remove that eyesore by tomorrow, or we tow it," he barked, his smirk daring me to flinch. My wife, Sarah, froze mid-step behind me, her nursing scrubs still dusted with flour from breakfast. "Tom, they can't do this," she whispered, her voice tight. I didn't answer, just peeled the notice off, the paper crinkling in my fist. The name at the bottom, Karen Whitaker, HOA president, stared back in bold, underlined twice. This wasn't about the Jeep. It was about control, and they just picked the wrong man to push. I'm Tom Carver, 20 years an Army mechanic, crawling under Humvees and sniffing out bad setups from a mile away. That truck? No state security decal, no license plate, and a dummy dash cam that hadn't blinked once. I'd spotted it the second they rolled up last week, when that same smug enforcer shoved Sarah against our SUV. Her gasp had lit a fire in me, the kind that doesn't burn out. I'd learned in the service to approach trouble slow and steady, like calming a spooked engine. But this wasn't a machine. This was my home, my wife, and the Jeep my dad and I rebuilt under that same oak tree before he passed. Every bolt, every weekend, every story about taking care of what matters it lived in that vehicle. Karen Whitaker didn't care about that. She wanted her perfect cul-de-sac, her little kingdom, and she'd hired goons to enforce it. The neighborhood was already crumbling under her. Mrs. Lee's garden gnomes were gone, replaced by scuffed dirt where the patrol tripped. Old Mr. Hensley's mailbox leaned crooked after a late night grazed the board called storm damage. I walked the street that afternoon, the violation notice tucked under my arm, and saw fear in every yard. Mrs. Lee knelt by her marigolds, eyes flicking to the paper. "They came again?" she asked, voice low. I nodded, threatened to tow my Jeep. She shook her head, whispering about nightly patrols circling like wolves, knocking on doors, citing her for a recycling bin left out too long. 2 houses down, Jake and Lisa, a young couple with a kid, cracked their garage door. "We're thinking of moving," Jake admitted, dark circles under his eyes. "This place doesn't feel safe anymore." The patrol truck idled at the block's end, watching. This wasn't just my fight. It was everyone's. That night, I sat in the garage, the Jeep's hood warm under my hand. I pulled out a notebook, a habit from my Army days, and started logging every incident: stamps, plates, descriptions. Sarah watched from the doorway, her hands trembling. "This is getting scary, Tom." I met her eyes. It's scarier for them. They just don't know it yet. I set up a camera on the porch, its red light blinking at the driveway. If they stepped foot on my property again, I'd have them. The next morning, another notice arrived, red letters screaming final warning. Vehicle removal imminent. A photo of the Jeep, snapped at night like a mugshot, was stapled to it. I felt my jaw tighten. They were playing dirty, banking on fear to break me. But soldiers don't fold. We watch, we plan, we strike. I took the Jeep for a drive, looping past the cul-de-sac's entrance. The patrol truck was parked behind a hedge, half hidden. I pulled over 2 streets away, grabbed my phone, and crept closer on foot. The truck's decals were peeling, the license plate generic, no security ID. The driver scrolled his phone, no clipboard, no duty belt, just a guy in shorts pretending to be a cop. I snapped photos, zoomed in on the VIN, and filmed a 30-second clip of their sloppiness. Back at the diner, I searched the state's private patrol database. Nothing for Magnolia Creek HOA. The truck's plate? Registered to a private owner, not a security firm. Karen was running a fake operation, no license, no insurance, harassing families on public streets. One wrong move, and her empire would crash. I spent the next day building my case. Photos of the truck, videos of their nightly prowls, and a growing stack of neighbor complaints. Sarah watched me in my office, blinds drawn, as I organized it like a battle plan. "You're really doing this," she said, half in awe. "I'm ending it," I replied. I emailed the state licensing board, attaching evidence and detailing the shove against Sarah as a criminal act. Then I called the county police liaison, voice steady, laying out the unlicensed patrol's actions. "That's not legal here," the officer said. "Send us what you've got." The first thread was pulled. That evening, I tested their nerve. I angled the Jeep across the yard, garage door open to show the cameras. The patrol truck crawled by, slowed, and stopped. The driver, the same one who'd shoved Sarah, leaned out. "Last night with that junk, pal," he sneered, laughing as they peeled off. I didn't chase. I recorded. Sarah handed me a coffee on the porch. "Will it be enough?" she asked. "It's the start," I said, calm and cold. The neighborhood was waking up. Porch lights stayed on. Curtains twitched with curiosity, not fear. The tide was turning. The HOA meeting was a powder keg. The clubhouse smelled of paint and stale coffee, packed with neighbors whispering nervously. Karen stood at the front, pearls gleaming, her smile a brittle mask. I sat in the back, my manila envelope heavy with proof. When she opened the floor for concerns, I stood. "Your patrol shoved my wife," I said, voice cutting through the hum. "You're threatening to tow a legal vehicle with an unlicensed truck. Care to explain how that's community safety?" The room stirred. Karen's smile twitched. "We operate within guidelines," she started, but I cut in. "No license, no insurance." I checked. A murmur spread. Ethan Cole, the board secretary, fumbled his pen, his face pale. He knew something, and his guilt was screaming. The side door opened. 2 officers and a state investigator walked in, silencing the room. "We're here about unlicensed security operations," the investigator said, holding up my photo of the truck. "This violates state law." Karen's voice cracked. "A misunderstanding." The officer cut her off, mentioning the harassment caught on my camera. I slid the envelope across the table. "Every notice, every pass, your own minutes authorizing it," I said. "This ends now." Ethan's head sank, but his eyes flickered with relief. Neighbors gasped, then spoke up. "Mrs. Lee, Mr. Hensley," Jake voices growing bolder. Karen slumped, her control unraveling. The investigator snapped photos of the evidence. "Patrol stops tonight," he said. "Fines and liability to follow." The room erupted in murmurs, not fear, but freedom. Neighbors shook my hand. "Thanks, Sarah." Karen whispered, "You set this up." I leaned in. "You did. I just brought the truth." Outside, the patrol truck was gone. The next night, Magnolia Creek breathed again. Porch lights glowed, kids rode bikes, laughter echoed. Sarah leaned against the Jeep, handing me coffee. "It feels alive," she said. I nodded. "Fear's gone." "Mrs. Lee" waved from her porch. Jake and Lisa smiled. "Mr. Hensley" tapped his cane to a silent beat. Karen resigned by dawn, Ethan stepping in as interim secretary. The board was broken, and the street was ours. I stood by the Jeep, hand on its fender, whispering to my dad's memory. We held the line. The oak tree swayed, its leaves catching the starlight. Sarah joined me, her shoulder against mine. "Feels right," she said. It did. We'd turned intimidation into accountability, fear into defiance. The cameras came down, but the Jeep stayed, a testament to what happens when you don't bend. The neighborhood wasn't just safe, it was alive, reclaimed by people who'd remembered how to stand tall. If you've ever fought for your home, your peace, tell me your story. Where are you standing now?